Succession has finally come to an end after 4 incredible seasons. I was so hyped, so excited. I was super late to Succession. I got into it like a couple months before season 4 started, and so I was caught up sort of a few episodes into season 4, and this show just took over my life. Like, it's one of the most I've been into a new show in a while, and I absolutely adored it. So it's safe to say that my hype going into the finale was pretty high, but did it live up to it? Well, let's find out. Hi, my name is Aidan Green. I like to talk about movies and TV here on YouTube, so if you like that kind of thing as well, please consider subscribing or liking this video if you enjoy what you see. This is a much more candid, relaxed setup we've got going today. Usually I sort of write a video essay and put a lot more editing into it. This is a bit more of a free-flowing video. I don't really have time at the moment to bust out a big Succession final video, but I wanted to do a closing chapter of the video, so this is more of a little review than a video essay. And before we get into it, there is big spoilers ahead, obviously, for the Succession finale. I don't know why you would click on this video if you hadn't seen it already, but hey, we're going to talk about who the successor is, so this is your spoiler warning. This is your chance to leave. Let's get into the video. I want to start by talking about the kids. These kids, they are the absolute highlight of the show, and in this episode, it's like a tour de force for them. We see them at their worst again, at their best. They start on different sides, and then they come together, and when you see them together, it is just so beautiful. These actors are so weird. They're so weird. Like, Kieran Culkin is one of the weirdest dudes on the planet. Sarah Snook, weird bloody woman. And Jeremy Strong, also a weird guy. But I don't know, they just fit the role so well, and they're all equally weird that when they're being weird in a scene when they're making a meal fit for a king, you really believe it, and it's really silly, and it's really funny to watch. And that scene in particular, when I was watching, I literally had the thought, I was like, I wonder if this is the last scene they shot. You could just tell, like, the actors were really in their element, they were having a lot of fun, and when you do schedule a film shoot, you often look at things like this to be the last shoot, where you want your actors to be the most confident. And this is an example of that. You really get to see them having a lot of fun. And as always, this is Succession, so we got to see a darker side of these characters once again. We saw them at their worst again, and I loved what I saw, so let's dive into the endings of these characters. The ending of almost every character in this show really hammers home how much of a tragedy Succession is. It's a comedy tragedy. It's a bit of a drama, but it's a tragedy. These characters do not have good endings. What they do is fulfilling for us, but for them, this is bloody King Lear, isn't it? I want to talk about Roman, who, to be honest, is the only Roy kid that has a bit of a happy ending. You know, we see Connor and Willa splitting, or kind of splitting. Well, Willa clearly doesn't want to spend time with Connor, and then we'll get into the other kids shortly. But for Roman, he's finally happy. At least that's how I read that last scene. I think you can interpret it in many different ways. Everyone is probably going to tell me I'm wrong, but for me, I've always thought that Roman throughout the show got more and more obsessed with becoming his father. He felt like he needed to be his father to take over from the company, and he was constantly living in the shadow of Logan. And it's one of those things where that's what he wants. He wants to be his father, but what he needs is actually to just be free of all that and to live Roman's life and not live Logan's life. Let's talk about Shiv. And Shiv is just an idiot. Like, they had a pretty good thing going for them with the plan, right? And she just had to be a bit of a dumb and ruin it all. I'm sorry, please don't get offended, Shiv stans. I know her points as to Roman being a killer. Yeah, definitely valid points, but you've gone this far with it. Why is this a problem now? She just ruined something that was going to be good for her, and she gets a bit of a tragic ending by she ends up with Tom, which, you know, they rekindle, they get back together. It's a bit of a tragedy because if she wants to leave Tom, then she'll lose any possible future power at Waystar, because obviously she's got a bun in the oven, she's preggo, so she's going to have a possible heir to the future Waystar throne inside of her. But also, I'm sure being married to Tom, that comes with her maybe being able to put a little bit of input into Waystar, and who knows, maybe Tom might hit her up with a job opportunity down the line. Obviously not CEO, but there is a potential for her to still have some power at Waystar. Alright, let's talk about Ken. My boy Ken. He's kind of the opposite of Roman, in which Kendall just is his dad. He is literally Logan. He lives to do this job. He's terrible with his kids, just as Logan was. And he doesn't want to be like his dad, but he is. And every time he tries not to be, he just kind of ends up being like his dad. And the tragic ending of it all is that he now has nothing. With Waystar taken away, he's obviously having some dark thoughts. I bet there was drafts of that script where maybe he did consider taking things a bit further, because there's obviously, hints throughout the show that he may take drastic action with his own life. And I think this ending left it in a pretty perfect place. Although, that's not necessarily where Jeremy Strong was always going to take it. Jeremy Strong has to be one of the weirdest units on the planet. This is what he said. In one of the takes, I climbed over the barrier. It always, to me, felt like there was no coming back from this. I looked at the waves. It was so windy and cold. There was a piece of metal clanging. It was a terrible sound and I couldn't bear it. So I stood up and walked slowly to the barrier and climbed over it. And I didn't really know what I planned on doing. The actor playing Colin saw me, ran, and stopped me from doing it. So, Jeremy Strong was gonna throw himself off that barrier. This weird unit. So yeah, obviously, Kendall doesn't really have anything more to offer the world at the moment. We've seen him try his own startups before, and it's never really held the same place in his heart or in his motivation as Waystar has. So that's the real tragedy, is that he's never, ever going to achieve what he wants to achieve.
You fucking little prick.
Right, Tom and Greg. Guys, I am in the Tom and Greg lovers club. I think those guys are the best, and sexual undertones going on throughout the entire show. I'm so glad these guys ended up on top. They are terrible people. Both of them suck. But you can't help but root for them sometimes. They're just weird units as well. And what do you know? Tom and Greg ended up on top. These two slimy boys, it's really ironic that they ended up on top, because all the kids were trying so hard to keep Waystar under a Roy sort of ruling going forward. But then the only two people from the Roy family that ended up staying in there is someone who's not even related, being Tom, and then, the grand nephew, who is a little bit of a loser, a little bit of a nobody, just kind of dizzily lumbers around. It's bananas that these two are the two that ended up on top in this, and I love it. I think Tom was the perfect pick. I think a really neat character decision for this episode was having Greg repeat what Tom did in the Series 3 finale. So in the Series 3 finale, we saw Tom backstab the Roy kids, and in this finale, we saw that Greg backstabbed Tom in order for him to gain a better position with the Roy kids. And obviously that blew up in his face and it didn't go well for him. But what did end up going well for me is that I think that Tom really appreciated and was really sort of admirable that Greg did that. And I think he almost feels like he is the reason that Greg did these things, because that's what Tom was like. Tom's this slimy dude. It's what he is like. He backstabs people. He's always in to do what's best for him. And that's what he's pushed onto Greg. I think he's proud of Greg. I think he thinks Greg, his little Gruggy, is his little pet that he's sort of trained up to be like this. And I think he sees a lot of use in Greg going forward. I thought that was a real nice little parallel between the Series 3 and the Series 4 finale. Unfortunately, characters like Connor and Jerry and a few other sort of big dogs throughout the show didn't really get that much screen time in the finale. But I'm not really mad about it, because from the start, you're there to see who's going to be the successor. And these characters all had small moments that closed off their stories in other episodes. So I don't feel like anything was left annoyingly ambiguous. I think it was a perfectly paced episode, an hour and a half. The score was at the best it's ever been. And the score has never been bad. It has never been good. It's always been great. This episode was beyond great. I think this must be one of the best scored episodes of TV ever. You feel that the sadder beats, you feel the tense boardroom walking around sort of music is just immense. I just want that soundtrack to be playing in my life. And also, it goes without saying, of course, the cinematography is fantastic. That final scene is beautiful. I know the lighting was perfect for them. The fact it's shot on film is perfect, but I think it takes a lot to make a show look that good in 2023, because I think people get a little bit lazy with cinematography these days. So the ultimate question, was the ending worth it? And I think obviously, yes, it absolutely was worth it. I think the only thing that I wasn't so sold on was they brought up the car accident again, which is a plot point that I love and I thought served a really good sort of 3-season arc for Ken. And it did just feel slightly unnecessary for it to come up in this episode. I know a lot of people were looking to see Ken get repercussions for his actions. I just think they either should have run with it and yeah, had it been outed that he'd killed someone, or just not mention it at all, which would have been my preference, instead of having this middle ground where it felt like they sort of said it just for the sake of saying it, just to appease those fans. But overall, the episode is fantastic. It's still a 10 out of 10 for me. I thought it was a fantastic finale, probably one of the best finales of TV history. I love it. I love the ambiguous sort of open-endedness that is still very closed off. I love that it didn't steer away from being a tragedy, because that's what it's always been. And it's just bloody perfect, isn't it? It's Succession. And how tight. It's a 4-season show, like 39 episodes. I can rewatch that every 2 years, and I'll be set for life, all right? Thank you very much for watching and listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video very, very soon. Go watch Succession, because what else are you going to do with your life, eh?